That is a terrible, terrible drive. 3 reasons that it could be happening, all due to your setup, and I'm going to fix them in today's lesson. If you've got marks on your driver like that, you need to subscribe to this channel, because we're going to help you get better at the game with the free tips that we do every Tuesday on Tip Tuesday. Let's give you some reasons why this driver is looking like that. So 3 reasons why you're hitting driver badly, and like I say, all to do with setup. I always think that when I watch pros on TV, they've all got immaculate setups, and if we don't set up to hit the ball well, we're probably not going to do so, and it's probably the easiest thing that we could get right, because we don't need to be physically strong to hit it 300 yards, we don't need to have the perfect golf swing, but we can stand to it, hold to it, create the correct angles actually to give us a pretty good chance of hitting it. And the first one that I see wrong is the actual stance, and what I'm talking about here, I like to build a pyramid of success, that I call it, with my students. A lot of times when I see people with driver, we've got a conflicting mindset with how we actually want to hit the golf ball. We get this club out and we think, oh, the big dog, I'm going to smash this. And then when we see you actually stand to it, you look like you're going to, I don't know, maybe hit it with a wet slipper. Doesn't look good, it doesn't look powerful, it doesn't look like there's a pyramid of success there. And what I mean by that is that when I address this golf ball, it looks like everything is working in a small rectangle. So as I draw lines up from my feet up to my shoulders, they're pretty much on the same lines there. They don't look like there's actually any stability, any platform for power, and actually any platform for building a swing that is going to be the fastest swing that we use throughout all our clubs. When we're stood to it, let's try and build this pyramid of success. And what I mean by that is both your feet and then where our head is as we're going through it. So if we think of pros on the television, when we think of Rory McIlroy, probably the best driver of the golf ball of my generation, he looks like he's going to launch it. He's a small lad, but he looks like he's going to knock it to the moon. And that's because as he stands to it now, and we see the distance between both his feet, his stance widens. He looks like both feet are wider than his shoulders. And then from there, if we were to just draw 3 little lines up to where my head is, I've built now a triangle. It's no longer my little rectangle stance from my shoulders. As I actually stand to it now, I've actually built a base that I'm going to be able to make a big golf swing at and actually put some power into it. So my head stays pretty much in the middle of the triangle, and then both feet are wider than my shoulders. So when you stand to it, please make sure that as you do stand to it, you are building that pyramid of success. Don't be stood here looking like you're not going to generate any speed or any actual hit in it. Let's start to actually build something that looks stable, so then we can start to get some better drivers. Second tip is all to do with ball position, and this is going to make sense for tip 3 as well, so make sure you stay around for that. But big common fault I see when we get into ball position, we're either too much one way or too much the other. We're not quite getting that middle ground and finding the ball position where we need to be. It can be quite easy to fall into these habits, and as we stand to it sometimes, a lot of people think, well, I'm making a golf swing, I've got 14 golf clubs in my bag, I should hit them all from the same place. So as we stand here, I get a club that's got 9 degrees of loft on it, my driver, and I actually play it right out of the middle of my stance. The problem is that with our driver, we know that we want to try and hit up on the golf ball, so we want to try and make sure that the blow isn't descending, it's ascending as it's coming into the golf ball, to make sure that we're launching it on the correct height and we're also getting the correct spin, allowing us to generate some distance. And also, if we're getting up on it, we're not going to be hitting down too much across it, which means that it's going to get that poor contact and also lead to the path being too much across it, which is a real common fault. We get a lot of people who just go, well, all clubs are the same, let's just put the ball in the middle of our stance. Couple of problems with that. Number one, we're not going to see that we get that ascending blow. We're probably going to be coming down on it, and then again leads to that poor contact. Also, if I'm going to be doing that, it's too far back in my stance, I'm not going to get the correct loft delivered on the golf club, so then I'm not going to get my flight I want. The other reason, you might have gone too far up the scale. Now, I've just said we need to hit it on the up, and we need to try and make sure that we're launching it correctly, and you take that knowledge on board and you maybe just go a little bit too far off the cliff's edge, and we end up seeing that the ball actually gets outside our lead foot now in an aid to try and hit it more and more on the up. Couple of things there. A, you're actually going to hit more down on it because as it's further out this way and as the swing is changing, the arc of the swing, I've actually got to go and try and find this golf ball because it's getting further and further away from me. So there are limitations to these things. So I'd end up hitting down. I'd also have to have it teed up about 7 or 8 inches to try and get that upward hit. So it's actually a little bit counterproductive if you get it too far forwards outside that front stand. So what we want to try and do, and it's really simple to try and do this each time, as you just put that club in there behind the golf ball, so it's not actually aligned to the golf ball, just bring it inside here and just get the shaft aligned with it. All you want to try and do is just use your eye, close one eye, and just see that that front foot is just sitting on the inside of it there, and then just have a little bit of a flare of the foot, and now we've got it in the right spot. If you actually try and line it up here, where you do it where the club is actually behind the golf ball, addressed to it, and then you do it, we've got it too far outside the front. So we've got to make sure we put the club just in here, align that foot, a little flare. From there then, now I've actually got a ball position, I've got my first point, that nice pyramid of success, and I'm starting to get to the point where I can hit a few shots that are actually going to get into better drivers. Let's take a look at that third and final one. Tip number 3 actually aligns to tip number 2, and it's what I call the tilt of terror. And that is all to do with the tilts we're creating from our shoulders and our spine angle. We just talked about ball position, and a lot of people end up getting it too far forwards and have it up here. And what that tends to do, as we get the ball further up our stance, what we end up doing, if it goes, you know, exaggerated outside my left foot, I would have to tilt to find it. Now I've got my tilt of terror, it's locked in. I've got my spine tilting towards the target, and I've got my shoulders tilting down towards the ground. I said earlier, we need to try and make sure that we're getting an ascending blow, hitting it up, and also trying to hit it neutral or maybe out to the right. It doesn't look like with the tilts of terror I'm going to do any of those things. So when we actually address this golf ball, A, we need that pyramid of power. B, we need to make sure that ball position is in the right spot. And then from there, if we think back to Rory McIlroy, who I mentioned earlier, as he stands to actually hit his driver, what we're starting to see now is that he has a spine angle that is tilted away from the target, so it leans ever so slightly back. His head sits behind the golf ball ever so slightly, which thus means that his shoulders are now tilting up towards the sky. They're not tilting down, and from here, with now some tilts that are actually in the position that we want, we're actually going to be able, with the other 2 factors, to deliver a swing that is more likely to actually deliver that ascending blow, get the good strike, and actually get those drives we want. So 3 key simple things that, like I said earlier in the video, we can all do. Real simple. Make sure that stance is right, make sure the ball position's right, and make sure we're tilted in the right direction. And from there then, we get nice high draws just like that one, or fades, and you're starting to hit that driver a lot better. So go through those guys, just identify with all 3 of them. Do you actually do all those 3 traits? If you don't, you need to, and then you'll start actually getting better with the big dog. Guys, share it around with someone who's struggling with the driver, and we'll see you in your next Tip Tuesday after you've subscribed.